You're watching Cold Blood Empire original story. Willow Swales did not plan to collapse in the war chamber. She had planned to stay invisible, like she had for 19 years inside Castle Lancaster. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant no one noticed when you hurt. But pain has a way of dragging truth into the open. Her knees struck the stone floor first. Her palms scraped forward as she tried to steady herself. Blood stained the hem of her servant dress. The 4 commanders turned at once, hands near their swords. At the head of the long oak table stood Alpha King Stefan Lancaster. Willow forced herself to look up at him. Tears blurred her vision. Her voice shook, but the words came out clear enough for every man in the chamber to hear. "It hurts," she sobbed. "I cannot close my legs." The silence that followed felt heavier than armor. No one dared speak. No one dared move. The Alpha King, who had never knelt for a noble or enemy, stepped forward slowly. Then, before his commanders and the entire weight of pack tradition, Stefan Lancaster dropped to one knee in front of her. "Hey, pause for a second. How are you feeling right now? If that moment hit you in the chest, you are in the right place. Thank you for being here. It truly means more than you know. I am building something powerful with this channel, and I am working toward 10,000 subscribers. If Willow's courage already has your heart racing, take one breath and hit that subscribe button for Cold Blood Empire. Smash the like, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Now let us go back to the moment the most feared Alpha King in the kingdom dropped to his knee. Chapter 1. The war chamber stretched 30 paces from door to throne. Torches burned in iron brackets along stone walls marked with territory maps. Daggers pinned parchment, showing border disputes with neighboring packs. The smell of burning wax mixed with leather and steel. Jordan Sidney stood nearest the table. He was broad across the shoulders, with a scar running from temple to jaw. His hand rested on his sword pommel. Beside him stood Rory Hayden, lean and calculating, his dark eyes fixed on military reports. Alex Copeland, younger than the others but no less deadly, kept his jaw tight as he studied supply routes. Stefan Lancaster towered over them all. At 32, he carried himself like a man who had killed before breakfast, and would do it again before supper if needed. Dark hair fell across his forehead. A scar cut through his left eyebrow. His steel-gray eyes tracked every movement in the chamber with predatory focus. He had been reviewing troop positions when the door opened. No servant entered the war chamber. Ever. The rule had stood for 300 years. But Willow Swales crawled through the doorway anyway. Her wool dress, once brown, was now torn at the hem and stained dark with blood. Her bare feet left smears across the cold stone. Every movement sent tremors through her legs. She could not steady them. She could not close them. The pain radiated from between her thighs in waves sharp enough to steal her breath. She dragged herself forward 3 paces before her body quit. The small sound of her knees hitting stone echoed through the vast chamber like a hammer strike. Every head turned. Willow tried to speak. Her throat closed. Pain lanced through her pelvis and spread through her lower back until she could not tell where one hurt ended and another began. "Please," she whispered. Her voice barely carried across the space. "Please, it hurts." The commanders stared. Not with compassion, not with concern, with the kind of shock reserved for witnessing something that should never exist in their world. An Omega servant, bleeding and broken, begging in the war chamber. Stefan moved. He did not call guards. He did not step back toward the safety of his commanders. He walked toward her. Willow's heart hammered against her ribs. She had never been this close to the Alpha King. Servants did not get close to the Alpha King. Servants cleaned floors he had already walked across. Servants prepared meals he never saw being made. Servants existed in the margins, silent and unseen, but now he stood directly in front of her. She could see the fine stitching on his leather boots, could smell pine and smoke and something darker, something that made her Omega instincts scream warnings and recognition in equal measure. Alpha. Strong Alpha. Dominant Alpha. The kind who could tear through anyone who challenged him without breaking stride. "Look at me." His voice was low and controlled, but it carried absolute authority. Slowly, painfully, Willow lifted her eyes. Stefan Lancaster knelt. Jordan Sidney inhaled sharply. Rory Hayden's hand tightened on his sword hilt. Alex Copeland stared with his mouth slightly open. An Alpha King did not kneel. Not for visiting royalty, not for treaties, not for ceremonies. An Alpha King stood above all others. Always. It was tradition. It was the law. It was the foundation upon which the pack hierarchy rested. But Stefan Lancaster was on one knee in front of a sobbing Omega servant girl. His expression shifted. Something flickered behind his eyes. Rage, tightly leashed. His wolf surged beneath his skin. Stefan felt the recognition slam into him like a fist to the chest. Mate, his wolf knew. The bond snapped into place with brutal certainty. He forced his voice to remain steady. Who did this to you? Willow's mouth opened. No sound came out. Stefan's jaw tightened. He studied her face. Pale skin, blue eyes red-rimmed from crying, light brown hair matted with sweat. Then his gaze moved lower, to her trembling legs, to the blood staining her torn dress, to her scraped feet. Can you stand? He asked. She shook her head. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. It hurts too much. I cannot move. Something shifted in Stefan's expression. His eyes hardened. He turned his head slightly toward his commanders, but did not take his attention off Willow. Jordan, he said, his voice sharp now. Get Tegan Smith. Now. Jordan Sidney did not hesitate. He turned and ran from the chamber. His boots echoed down the corridor. Your Majesty? Rory Hayden stepped forward carefully. Should we not? Return to your strategy, Stefan interrupted. Say nothing of what you have seen here until I give permission. It was not a suggestion. Alex Copeland bowed slightly. Yes, Your Majesty. The three remaining commanders retreated to the far side of the chamber. Their faces stayed carefully blank, but their eyes remained sharp with questions. Stefan turned his attention back to Willow. I am going to lift you. It will hurt. Please do not, Willow whispered. Please, I will leave. I will go back to the kitchens. I am sorry. I should not have come here. You should never have had to come here like this. Stefan's hand moved slowly, giving her time to see what he intended before he touched her. But you did. Now I am going to help you. His hand settled on her shoulder. Warm, steady. The contact sent a jolt through Willow's system. Not pain, something else. Something that felt like safety, which made no logical sense. On 3, Stefan said quietly. 1. Willow braced herself. 2. She closed her eyes. 3. Stefan lifted her as though she weighed nothing. One arm beneath her knees, the other supported her back. Suddenly she was against his chest, cradled like something precious instead of something broken. The pain flared sharp and immediate. Willow bit back a cry. Stefan held her steady. His movements were careful as he stood. Breathe, he murmured so quietly only she could hear. Just breathe. Willow tried. Short, shallow breaths that did not ease the pain but at least kept her conscious. Stefan carried her out of the war chamber without another word to his commanders. His stride was steady and sure. He navigated corridors she had only ever cleaned, moved through parts of Castle Lancaster she had only ever imagined. Servants pressed themselves against walls as they passed. Their eyes went wide with shock. An Alpha King carrying an Omega servant in his arms. It was impossible. It was scandalous. It was happening. Willow's head rested against Stefan's shoulder because she did not have the strength to hold it up. She could feel his heartbeat, steady, strong. Could feel the controlled power in every step he took. Where are you taking me? She whispered. My chambers. Willow's eyes flew open. I cannot, Your Majesty. I am not. You are injured, Stefan said simply. Tegan will need proper light and space to examine you. My chambers are closest. They climbed a spiral staircase. Each step sent fresh jolts of pain through Willow's body. She bit back whimpers. Stefan's arms tightened around her slightly, protective. She found herself pressing closer to him despite every instinct screaming that she should maintain distance. He was warm, so warm. His scent cut through the haze of pain, pine and smoke and something uniquely him. It brought with it a strange sense of safety that made no sense. Alpha scents were supposed to make Omegas afraid during pain. They were supposed to trigger submission, or panic, or desperate need. But Stefan's scent made her feel protected. The Alpha King's private chambers were nothing like Willow had imagined. She had expected gold and silk and extravagance. Instead, she found stone walls softened by tapestries, showing forest scenes, a large bed covered in dark furs, windows overlooking the kingdom below. Simple, functional, strong. Stefan carried her to the bed and set her down with such careful gentleness that Willow's breath caught. "Lie back," he instructed. She did. The movement pulled at her injuries. She winced. Stefan stepped back but did not leave. He stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed over his chest. His expression was unreadable. "What is your name?" he asked. "Willow," she whispered. "Willow Swales." "How old are you, Willow?" 19, Your Majesty." "You work in the kitchens?" She nodded. "How long?" 3 years. Stefan's jaw clenched. 3 years. In those 3 years, has anyone helped you? Willow did not understand the question. "Your Majesty?" "Suppressants," he said bluntly. "Heat suppressants. Has anyone provided them?" Shame burned through her. "I was saving. They are expensive. I almost had enough, but then," she trailed off, unable to finish. "Your heat came early." It was not a question, but Willow nodded anyway. Stefan turned away. His shoulders were tight with tension. He walked to the window and stood there, silhouetted against late afternoon light. The door burst open. Tegan Smythe swept in with a healer's bag in one hand and Jordan Sidney behind her. Tegan was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and practical, with silver streaking through her dark hair tied back in a braid. She took one look at Willow on the Alpha King's bed, and her expression went carefully neutral. "Out," she said to Stefan without a preamble. "Both of you. I need to examine her." "I want to know everything," Stefan said. His voice was low and dangerous. "Every injury, You will know everything," Tegan interrupted. "After I have done my job. Now out." For a moment, Willow thought the Alpha King might refuse. But then he nodded once, sharp and controlled, and strode from the room. Jordan followed. The door closed behind them. Tegan set her bag on the bed and looked at Willow with kind but serious eyes. "I am going to touch you now. I will be as gentle as I can, but this is going to hurt. Can you be brave for me?" Willow nodded, tears already formed. "Good girl," Tegan murmured. She began her examination. Outside the chamber, Stefan stood with his back against the stone wall, his hands clenched into fists. Jordan waited beside him in silence. "How did she get to the war chamber?" Stefan asked finally. "I do not know yet," Jordan admitted. "But I will find out. Someone hurt her." Stefan's voice was flat, emotionless, which was somehow more terrifying than if he had shouted. "Hurt her badly enough that she crawled to the one room in this entire castle where she knew she would find me." "Your Majesty." She could not close her legs, Jordan. Stefan turned to look at his commander. His eyes burned with barely controlled rage. She was sobbing in pain and she could not close her legs. "What does that tell you?" Jordan's expression hardened. "It tells me someone is going to die." "Not yet." Stefan pushed off the wall. "First I want to know who. I want to know why. And then..." He trailed off, but the promise of violence hung in the air between them. The door opened. Tegan stepped out. Her face was grim. "Well?" Stefan demanded. Tegan closed the door carefully behind her. When she spoke, her voice was low and controlled. "She has bruises on her inner thighs. Fresh. She has been bleeding. There is tearing." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "This was not rough handling, Your Majesty. This was brutal." Stefan's hands clenched so tight his knuckles went white. "There is more," Tegan continued. "She has older bruises on her ribs, her back, her arms. Some are weeks old, some are months old. This girl has been hurt repeatedly. No one did anything about it. Can you help her? Stefan's voice was barely above a whisper. I have given her something for the pain. I have cleaned and treated the wounds. But Your Majesty, Tegan met his eyes directly. The physical injuries will heal. The other damage will take much longer. Stefan nodded slowly. Thank you, Tegan. Can I see her? She is resting, but yes. Stefan walked past Tegan into the chamber. Willow lay on his bed, covered with dark furs despite the warmth of the room. Her face was turned toward the window. Tears tracked silently down her cheeks. Stefan approached slowly, making his footsteps loud enough that she would hear him coming. She turned her head. Your Majesty. Just Stefan, he said, pulling a chair close to the bed. When we are alone, you can call me Stefan. Willow's eyes widened. I could not. You can. Stefan sat down, careful to keep distance between them. Willow, I need you to tell me what happened. I need you to tell me who hurt you. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I cannot. Why? Because he will kill me. Her voice broke. If I tell you, he will make sure I disappear. No one will ever know what happened to me. Stefan leaned forward slightly. I give you my word as Alpha King, as Alpha, as a man, that no one will touch you again. Not while I am breathing. Tell me his name. Willow stared at him. She searched his face for something. Truth, maybe. Sincerity. Just the slightest hint that he actually meant what he said. She must have found it. Robert Gart sighed, she whispered. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The head steward, Stefan said slowly. Willow nodded. He manages all the servants. He controls everything in the lower levels. The kitchens, the laundry, the stables. If you cross him. She swallowed hard. People disappear. Tell me what he did. So she did. She told him about her heat coming 3 days early. About trying to hide it. Trying to work through it. Trying to stay invisible the way she had always stayed invisible. She told him about Robert noticing. About being dragged from the kitchens by her hair. About the corridors and the stone floor and the pain. She told him about the other girls. Megan Holton and Lexi Torp, and Molly Browning and Maya Payton. About how they had all learned to stay quiet, to stay small, to never complain. She told him about crawling to the war chamber because it was the only place she could think of where someone might actually help her. By the time she finished, Stefan's expression was carved from stone. How many? He asked quietly. How many girls has he hurt? I do not know. Willow's voice was barely audible. More than just us. Some leave. Some just stop coming to work. Stefan stood abruptly. Rest now. I will have guards posted outside this chamber. No one gets in without my permission. Do you understand? Willow nodded, exhausted. Sleep, Stefan said softly. You are safe now. He walked to the door but paused with his hand on the handle. Without turning around, he said, Thank you for trusting me, Willow. I will not let you down. Then he was gone. Willow lay in the Alpha King's bed, surrounded by his scent, and for the first time in 3 years, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. Chapter 2. 3 days passed. Willow spent them in Stefan's chambers, healing slowly under Tegan's careful attention. The pain lessened with each passing hour. It faded from sharp agony to dull aches she could almost ignore. But the fear remained. Every footstep in the corridor made her tense. Every voice beyond the door made her heart race. Even with guards posted outside, loyal men who answered directly to the Alpha King, Willow could not shake the feeling that Robert Gartside would find a way to reach her. Stefan visited every evening. He never stayed long, just long enough to ask how she was feeling, to make sure she had everything she needed, to sit in the chair beside the bed and read from whatever book he had brought with him that day. His voice was different when he read, softer, less controlled. There was warmth in it that Willow had never heard directed at her before. On the 4th evening, she finally asked, Why are you doing this? Stefan looked up from the book in his hands. It was a collection of poetry she did not recognize. Doing what? This. Willow gestured vaguely at the room. At him. At everything. Take care of me. Reading to me. You are the Alpha King. You have a kingdom to run. Why are you sitting here with a servant girl? Stefan closed the book slowly. Because you deserve it. I am nobody. You are Willow Swales, he said firmly. You are 19 years old. You survived 3 years in a system designed to break you. You crawled through pain to find help instead of accepting what was done to you. That is not nobody, Willow. That is someone worth protecting. She did not know what to say to that. Stefan stood, setting the book on the small table beside the bed. I have news. The inquiry is finished, and the evidence has been sealed. Willow's stomach tightened. And? Robert Gartside was not working alone. Stefan's expression darkened. He had help. Financial help from people who should have known better. Who? Nobles, Stefan said quietly. Wealthy men who paid Robert to provide them with access to certain servants. In exchange, Robert received gold and protection. Bile rose in Willow's throat. How many nobles? 3 that we can prove. Matthew Rodney, Reuben Barry, Patrick Hornsby. Willow felt the blood drain from her face. Those were powerful names. Men with influence. Men with armies. You arrested nobles? Her voice came out small. They could start a rebellion. They could make your kingdom fall apart because of me. Then we will build a better one. Stefan moved closer to the bed, close enough that Willow could see the exhaustion in his eyes. You are worth more than a crown, Willow. More than a kingdom. You are worth everything. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she did not, his hand covered hers on the blanket. Warm, steady, solid. How did you find them? Willow asked. Ledgers, Stefan said. Detailed records of payments, dates, names. Robert kept everything, probably as insurance in case he ever needed leverage. It is going to make the trial very straightforward. Trial? Public trial, Stefan confirmed. In the throne hall. I want every noble, every servant, every person in this castle to see what was happening. I want them to know this ends now. They will hate you for it. Probably. Stefan's smile was grim. But they will respect the law. And if they do not, his eyes hardened. They can join Robert in exile. Willow's breath caught. Exile? Not execution? That depends on you. She blinked. On me? Stefan knelt beside the bed, bringing himself to her eye level. You are the victim here, Willow. You and Megan and Lexi and Molly and Maya. This is your justice, not mine. If you want Robert dead, I will make it happen. If you want him exiled, stripped of everything he owns, forced to live the rest of his life knowing he is nothing, that is your choice too. What about the nobles? Same choice. Stefan's hand moved to rest on the bed beside hers, close but not touching. Whatever you decide, I will support it. But I need you to think carefully. Whatever happens in that throne hall is going to change this kingdom forever. Willow looked at his hand so close to hers, strong, scarred from weapons training, capable of terrible violence, but gentle. He had been nothing but gentle with her. I need to talk to the others, she said finally. Megan, Lexi, Molly, Maya. Before I decide anything, I need to know what they want. Stefan nodded. I will arrange it. They are all safe, by the way. Under guard like you. No one has touched them. Thank you. Willow hesitated, then slowly moved her hand until her fingers brushed against his. Stefan's breath caught. His eyes dropped to where their hands were almost touching. Something flickered across his face. Something hungry and restrained and achingly careful. Willow, he said quietly, I need you to understand something. What? This is not charity. His voice was low, almost rough. What I feel when I am near you. What I want. He seemed to struggle with the words. Willow's heart hammered. What do you want? Stefan's eyes met hers. The intensity there stole her breath. Everything, he whispered. I want to protect you and heal you and make sure you never hurt again. But I also want to know what makes you smile. I want to hear you laugh. I want to fall asleep listening to you breathe and wake up with you in my arms. I want you, Willow. Not because you are Omega or because I am Alpha or because of any bond. I want you because you are brave and strong and you survived when you should have been broken. Willow could not speak, could not breathe, could not do anything but stare at this powerful man kneeling beside her, confessing things no Alpha King should say to a servant. But Stefan continued, his voice firming slightly. I will not act on any of that until you are healed, until you are safe, until you have choices and freedom and the ability to say no without fear. Do you understand? Slowly, Willow nodded. Good. Stefan stood, the moment shattered like glass. I will bring the others tomorrow. Get some rest. He was halfway to the door when Willow found her voice. Stefan. He stopped. His back was still to her. I want you too. She saw his shoulders tense, saw his hand clench on the door handle. But when he spoke, his voice was steady. Then we will see where this leads. When you are ready. He left without looking back. Willow lay in the darkness, her hands still tingling where his fingers had brushed hers, and wondered how everything had changed so completely in just 4 days. Chapter 3. The next morning, Tegan arrived with 4 young women. Willow recognized them immediately. Megan Holton stood at the front. She had copper-colored hair and green eyes shadowed with fear. Lexi Torp was petite and dark-haired, with bruises still visible on her wrists. Molly Browning was tall and elegant despite the marks on her arms. Maya Peyton, blonde and fragile-looking, had steel in her gaze. They stared at Willow in the Alpha King's bed, with expressions of shock and disbelief. It is true, then, Megan breathed. The Alpha King really... He is protecting her, Tegan said firmly. All of you, actually. You are all under royal protection now. Lexi moved closer to the bed. Are you all right, Willow? I am healing. Willow sat up slowly, wincing. Thanks to Tegan and the Alpha King. Maya added quietly. They are saying he carried you himself, that he arrested nobles for what Robert did. It is true, Willow confirmed. All of it. Molly's eyes were sharp. Why? Why would he do that for servants? Because it was the right thing to do, Tegan answered before Willow could. Your Alpha King is not like other alphas. Now I will give you privacy. You have much to discuss. She left, closing the door softly behind her. The 5 young women looked at each other in silence. They want us to testify, Megan said finally. At the trial. They want us to stand in front of everyone and tell them what Robert did. Lexi wrapped her arms around herself. I cannot stand up there and... You do not have to, Willow interrupted. None of us do. The ledgers are evidence enough, but our testimony would be stronger, Molly said softly. It would make it real for people. Not just numbers in a book, actual harm to actual people. Maya moved to sit on the edge of the bed. I want to do it. I want to look Robert in the face and tell everyone what he is. You are braver than me, Lexi whispered. No, Maya shook her head. I am just angrier. There is a difference. They talked for hours. About Robert. About the nobles. About the years of silence and fear and pain that had become normal. And they talked about what they wanted. Not revenge, Willow realized. None of them wanted blood. They wanted something better. They wanted safety. They wanted recognition. They wanted the world to know what happened to them. By the time the sun began to set, they had made their decision. All 5 of them would testify. And they would ask not for execution, but for something more permanent. Something that would change the system that had allowed Robert to thrive. They would ask for restitution. For land rights. Protections sealed under royal decree and enforced by the crown. They would ask for a future where no Omega servant would ever have to suffer in silence again. When Stefan returned that evening, Willow told him their decision. He listened without interrupting. His expression was unreadable. You are sure? He asked when she finished. We are sure. Stefan nodded slowly. Then I will make it happen. The trial is set for 3 days from now. He paused. Are you strong enough to attend? I will be there, Willow promised. "We all will." "Good." Stefan moved to his usual chair, but this time, instead of picking up a book, he just sat there looking at her. "What?" Willow asked, suddenly self-conscious. "I am trying to memorize this," he admitted. "You. Right now. Because everything is about to change. And I want to remember this moment before it does." "Why?" "Because right now you are safe. You are healing. You are making choices." He paused. "And he smiled slightly. "I am falling for you, Willow Swales. Harder than I have ever fallen for anyone. And once that trial happens, once the kingdom sees what I am willing to do for you and the others, there is no going back. So I am memorizing this moment. This is quiet. This peace." Willow's chest tightened. "I am scared. I know. What if it goes wrong? What if the nobles rebel? What if—" "Then we will handle it." Stefan's voice was firm. "Together. You are not alone anymore, Willow. You are never going to be alone again." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she did not, his hand covered hers, warm and steady and solid. 3 days, he said quietly. "And then we change everything. Before we step into that throne hall, I need to ask you something. If you were standing in that crowd, would you stay silent or would you speak?" If this story is keeping you locked in, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to Cold Blood Empire. Every click tells the algorithm that powerful stories like this deserve to be seen. Now let us walk into the trial that will shake the kingdom. Willow nodded, her fingers curling around his. 3 days, and then justice. Meanwhile, in the castle archives, Jordan Sidney worked late into the night. He had spent the past 3 days combing through financial records. Robert Gartside had been meticulous in his record-keeping. Every payment was documented, every transaction recorded. Jordan spread the ledgers across a table in the restricted section of the archives. Cody Landon, one of the younger guards Stefan trusted, stood watch at the door. "How bad is it?" Cody asked. "Worse than we thought." Jordan traced a finger down a column of numbers. "This goes back 7 years. Matthew Rodney alone paid over 3,000 gold pieces." Cody whistled low. "That is a fortune. That is deliberate and repeated violation of servants under your authority." Jordan flipped to another page. "Look at this. Names, dates, specific requests." He felt sick reading them. "The Alpha King is going to execute them all," Cody said. "Maybe," Jordan closed the ledger. "Or maybe he will let the victims decide. Either way, these nobles are finished." He gathered the evidence carefully. Every page would be needed for the trial. Every number would tell its own damning story. As Jordan carried the ledgers back to Stefan's private study, he thought about Willow Swales crawling into the war chamber, about the courage it must have taken to ask for help when the entire system was designed to keep her silent. Stefan was right. Some traditions deserve to die. In the servants' quarters, word spread quickly. The Alpha King had arrested nobles. He had taken an Omega servant into his own chambers. He was planning a public trial. Some servants whispered in excitement. Others were afraid. Samantha Smythe, an older kitchen worker who had served Castle Lancaster for 20 years, gathered a group of younger servants in the laundry room after their shifts ended. "Listen carefully," she said, her voice low. "What is happening now is dangerous. The nobles will fight back. But if the Alpha King succeeds, everything changes. For all of us." "What do we do?" asked Rachel Adlam, barely 16 and terrified. "We support the victims," Samantha said firmly. "We make sure everyone knows their names. Willow Swales, Megan Holton, Lexi Torp, Molly Browning, Maya Payton. Say their names. Remember them. Whatever happens in that throne hall, they will need our support." The servants nodded. For the first time in decades, they felt something other than resignation. They felt the possibility. Chapter 4. On the second night before the trial, Stefan could not sleep. He stood at the window of his study, looking out over Castle Lancaster. Torches burned along the walls. Guards patrolled the battlements. Everything looked normal, but nothing was normal anymore. His wolf paced restlessly beneath his skin. The mate bond had fully formed now. Every instinct screamed at him to go to Willow, to claim her, to mark her, to make sure every wolf in the kingdom knew she was his. But he would not until she chose him freely. Not until she was healed. Not until she had every option and still decided she wanted him. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he called. Rory Hayden stepped in. His expression was troubled. "What is it?" Stefan asked. "We have a problem." Rory closed the door behind him. "Matthew Rodney is calling for a formal challenge." Stefan's hands clenched. "On what grounds?" "He claims you are acting emotionally, that your attachment to the Omega servant has compromised your judgment, that the kingdom needs stable leadership." "Stable leadership." Stefan's voice was flat. "He means leadership that will look the other way while nobles abuse servants." "Yes, let him challenge." Stefan turned to face his commander. "I will kill him in front of the entire pack. Then we will see who else wants to question my judgment." "Your Majesty, if you kill a noble before the trial—" "I know." Stefan cut him off. "It will look like I am silencing opposition. It will give credibility to their claims." He ran a hand through his hair. "How many are supporting him?" "At least 6 houses, maybe more." Stefan was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Increase security around Willow and the other girls. Double the guards. No one gets near them without my explicit permission. Already done." "Good." Stefan walked to his desk. "Is there anything else?" Rory hesitated. "The pack is talking, Your Majesty. About you and the Omega girl. About the mate bond." Stefan went very still. "What are they saying?" "That your wolf recognized her. That the bond formed when she collapsed. That you are protecting her not just because it is right, but because she is your fated mate." "Are they wrong?" "No," Rory said carefully. "But it complicates things politically. If the nobles can argue you are acting on instinct rather than reason, let them argue." Stefan's voice was hard. "The mate bond does not change the facts. Robert Gartside abused servants. Nobles paid him to do it. Justice will be served regardless of what I feel for Willow." "I believe you, Your Majesty. But will they?" Stefan did not answer. After Rory left, Stefan stood alone in his study. The mate bond pulled at him. Stronger now, more insistent. His wolf demanded he go to her, so he did. He walked through dark corridors to his chambers. The guards stationed outside bowed as he approached. "Has she slept?" Stefan asked. "Not yet, Your Majesty," one guard answered. "She has been awake for hours." Stefan nodded and entered quietly. Willow sat by the window, wrapped in one of his furs. She turned when she heard him. "I could not sleep," she said. "Neither could I." Stefan closed the door behind him. "May I sit with you?" She nodded. He pulled a chair close to hers. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, looking out over the moonlit kingdom. Finally, Willow spoke. "Your commanders are worried. They always worry. It is their job. They think the nobles will rebel. They might, because of me." Stefan turned to look at her. "Not because of you. Because I am demanding they follow laws they have ignored for decades. Because I am refusing to let power and gold buy immunity from justice. Because I am showing them that tradition is not sacred if it protects monsters." Willow studied his face. "You really believe that?" "I do." She was quiet for another moment. Then she said, "Your wolf recognized me." It was not a question. Stefan went very still. "Yes." "When?" "The moment you collapsed in the war chamber. The bond snapped into place immediately." "Is that why you are doing all this? Because of the mate bond?" "No." Stefan's voice was firm. "I am doing this because it is right. Because you and every servant in this castle deserve protection. Because the system is broken and needs to be fixed." He paused. "But I will not lie to you, Willow. The mate bond makes me want to protect you even more fiercely. It makes my wolf want to claim you. It makes every instinct I have scream that you belong with me. What do you want?" Willow asked softly. Stefan met her eyes. I want you to choose me freely, not because of a bond, not because I saved you, but because you want me, as a man, as a partner, as someone you trust with your heart. Willow stood. She moved closer to him, and Stefan forced himself to remain still, to let her come to him. She stopped directly in front of his chair, close enough that he could feel the heat of her body, could smell her scent mixing with his. I do want you, she whispered. The mate bond did not make me feel safe when you carried me. It did not make me trust you when you knelt. It did not make me fall for you when you read poetry in the evenings. That was all you, Stefan. Just you. Stefan's hands gripped the arms of the chair. His control was fraying. I am not healed yet. Willow continued. Her voice shook slightly. My body still hurts. I am still afraid of shadows. I still wake up thinking I am back in the kitchens. I know, but I do not want to wait anymore. I do not want fear to control me. She swallowed hard. I want to feel something other than pain. I want to remember what it is like to be touched gently, to be wanted instead of used. Stefan stood slowly. He cupped her face in his hands. His touch was gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. If we do this, he said, his voice rough, we do it at your pace. You tell me what you want, what feels good, what hurts. And if you say stop, we stop, immediately. Do you understand? Willow nodded. Say it. If I say stop, we stop. Good. Stefan lowered his head slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she did not, he kissed her. Soft at first, tentative, testing. Then Willow made a small sound in her throat, and Stefan deepened the kiss. His arms came around her, pulling her close but not crushing, holding her like she was precious. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Willow smiled, a real smile, the first Stefan had seen from her. Stay with me tonight, she whispered. Just hold me. That is all I need right now. Stefan nodded. He guided her to the bed and lay down beside her, fully clothed. Willow curled against his chest. His arms wrapped around her carefully, avoiding her injuries. Tell me something, she murmured. Something you have never told anyone. Stefan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I was terrified when you collapsed. Of what? Of failing you. Of being too late. Of being just another person who saw you hurting and did nothing. His arms tightened slightly. Every Alpha King before me would have called guards, would have had you removed, would have ignored what was happening because tradition said that is what you do, but I could not. Not with you. Something in me just broke, or maybe it was already broken and you made me realize it. Willow pressed closer. You were not broken. You were just waiting to be yourself. They lay together in the darkness. Stefan listened to Willow's breathing gradually slow, felt her body relax against his, knew the exact moment she fell asleep. His wolf settled, content, protective, right. Tomorrow would bring the trial. It would bring confrontation, conflict, and possibly violence. But tonight, Stefan held his mate in his arms and knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. Chapter 5. The morning of the day before the trial, Stefan called an emergency council meeting. The chamber was packed. All the remaining loyal nobles attended. Rhys Home, an elderly statesman who had served 3 generations of Lancaster Alphas. Kayla Currington, a sharp-minded strategist. Tia Cholmondeley, who controlled the Eastern Territories. They sat around the long table, facing the grave. Stefan stood at the head, flanked by Jordan, Rory, and Alex. Matthew Rodney has declared formal opposition. Stefan began without preamble. He claims I am unfit to rule because of my attachment to Willow Swales. He says I am acting emotionally rather than rationally. He is a fool, Rhys Home said bluntly. Everyone knows what Robert Gartside did. The evidence is overwhelming. Evidence does not matter to men like Matthew, Kayla pointed out. He is not actually concerned about your judgment, Your Majesty. He is concerned about losing power. 6 noble houses are supporting him, Rory added. They are threatening to withhold taxes, to refuse military support. They are calling it a matter of principle. Principle. Stefan's voice dripped with contempt. They mean the principle that nobles can do whatever they want without consequence. What do you want to do? Tia asked carefully. Stefan looked at each council member in turn. I want to proceed with the trial exactly as planned. Public testimony, full disclosure of the evidence, legal reform announced immediately afterward. That could trigger rebellion, Rhys warned. I know, Your Majesty. Kayla leaned forward. If we are going to risk civil war, we need to be strategic about it. We need to show the pack that this is not about you protecting one Omega. This is about protecting all Omegas, all servants, all wolves who have been exploited by those in power. Stefan nodded slowly. What do you suggest? Let the victims speak for themselves, Kayla said. Do not stand on the throne during their testimony. Stand beside them. Show the pack that you see them as equals, not as subjects. That will scandalize the traditional nobles, Rory said. Good, Stefan replied. Let them be scandalized. There is something else, Jordan added grimly. We intercepted a message this morning. Matthew is trying to hire mercenaries from outside the pack. The room went silent. He is preparing for war, Alex said quietly. So are we. Stefan's voice was hard. Double the guard rotations. Secure all entrances to the castle. I want archers on every wall. If Matthew wants a fight, we will give him one. Your Majesty, Rhys spoke carefully. There may be another way. Let me speak with Matthew privately. See if I can convince him to stand down. You think he will listen? Probably not. But it is worth trying. If we can avoid bloodshed, do it, Stefan agreed. But be careful. Matthew is desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. The council meeting continued for another hour. They discussed troop movements, supply lines, and potential allies. By the time it ended, everyone understood what was at stake. This trial would determine not just the fate of Robert Gartside and 3 corrupt nobles, it would determine the future of the entire kingdom. That evening, Stefan found Willow in the observatory he had shown her a few nights earlier. She stood at the glass wall, looking out over the kingdom, wrapped in one of his cloaks. You heard, she said without turning around. About Matthew? Yes, this is my fault. Stefan crossed the room and turned her to face him. This is not your fault. This is the fault of men who built a system that allowed them to hurt people without consequences. This is the fault of nobles who would rather start a war than admit they were wrong. People might die because of me. People might live because of you, Stefan corrected. Every Omega who will not be abused. Every servant will have legal protection. Every child who will grow up knowing that justice applies to everyone, not just the powerful. That is because of you, Willow. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I am so scared. I know. Stefan pulled her close. But you are also brave. The bravest person I have ever met. And tomorrow, you are going to stand in front of the entire pack and tell them your truth. And I will be standing right beside you. Willow buried her face in his chest. Promise me something. Anything. If it comes to war, if Matthew rebels and everything falls apart. She pulled back to look at him. Promise me you will not die for this. Promise me you will survive. Stefan cupped her face gently. I promise I will fight like hell to stay alive, because I have every reason in the world to survive. He kissed her softly. I have you. They stood together as the sun set, wrapped in each other's arms, gathering strength for the battle ahead. Late that night, in a tavern on the edge of Castle Lancaster's territory, Rhys Home met with Matthew Rodney. Matthew sat at a corner table, flanked by 2 armed guards. He looked older than his 40 years, with gray streaking through his dark hair and lines of bitterness carved into his face. You came, Matthew said as Rhys sat down. The Alpha King sent me to offer you a chance. A chance to what? Bow and scrape while he destroys everything our ancestors built? A chance to avoid war, Rhys said bluntly. Matthew, you cannot win this fight. Stefan has the loyalty of the pack. He has the law on his side. He has evidence that will damn you and every noble who supported Robert Gartside. He has the loyalty of servants and commoners, Matthew spat. The real power in this kingdom belongs to noble houses. Without us, Stefan is nothing. You are wrong. Rhys leaned forward. The real power belongs to whoever the pack chooses to follow. And right now, they are choosing Stefan. Because he is standing up for the wolves no one else protects. He is standing up for one Omega girl, because his wolf recognized her as a mate. That is not leadership. That is a weakness. If that is what you truly believe, then there is nothing more to say. Rhys stood. But know this, Matthew. When this is over, when Stefan wins and he will win, history will remember you as the noble who chose pride over justice. The man who would rather start a war than admit he was wrong. He walked out of the tavern without looking back. Matthew sat alone at his table, hands clenched into fists. He had already made his choice. There would be blood. Chapter 6. The morning of the trial arrived with gray skies and cold wind. Willow woke before dawn. She had slept poorly, her mind racing with everything that would happen in the throne hall. Tegan arrived early to help her dress. "How do you feel?" the healer asked, laying out a simple but elegant gown of deep blue wool. "Terrified," Willow admitted. "Good. That means you understand what is at stake." Tegan helped her into the dress. "Fear is not weakness, child. Fear is your body preparing to fight." Willow studied herself in the polished bronze mirror. The dress fit well, made her look older, more substantial, like someone whose words might actually matter. "The other girls are ready," Tegan said. "They are waiting in the servants' hall. The Alpha King thought you might want to meet with them before the trial begins." Willow nodded. "Yes, please." Tegan led her through corridors, now familiar. Guards bowed as they passed. Servants stopped their work to watch. Word had spread throughout the entire castle. Everyone knew what was about to happen. In the servants' hall, Megan, Lexi, Molly, and Maya waited. They all wore similar dresses in different colors. Green for Megan, gray for Lexi, brown for Molly, pale yellow for Maya. They looked at each other in silence. "We can still refuse," Megan said finally. "No one will force us to testify." "I know," Willow replied. "Do you want to refuse?" Megan shook her head. "No, I want to do this. I am just scared." "We all are," Maya added. "But we are doing it anyway." Lexi moved closer to Willow. "What did you decide? About the sentence?" Willow took a breath. "I spoke with Stefan last night. He agrees with our proposal. We ask for exile instead of execution. We ask for law reform. We ask for land rights and legal protections." "Will the pack accept it?" Molly asked. "I do not know," Willow admitted. "But it is what we want. So, it is what we will demand." The door opened. Stefan entered, flanked by Jordan and Rory. He wore full ceremonial armor, black steel chased with silver, a cloak of wolf fur across his shoulders. The crown on his head was simple, just a silver circlet, but it looked deadly on him. He studied each of the 5 young women in turn. "Are you ready?" "As ready as we will ever be," Willow said. Stefan nodded. "The throne hall is full. Every noble in the kingdom is present. Many servants as well. What happens today will be witnessed by hundreds of wolves." He paused. "You can change your mind at any point. You can ask to testify privately. You can refuse to testify at all. The choice is yours." "We want to do this publicly," Maya said firmly. "We want everyone to see. Then they will." Stefan's gaze settled on Willow. Something passed between them. Understanding, trust, love. "It is time," he said quietly. The throne hall of Castle Lancaster was designed to overwhelm. Massive stone columns supported a ceiling 3 stories high. Banners bearing the Lancaster crest, a silver wolf on a black field, hung from the walls. Windows of colored glass cast patterns across the marble floor. And at the far end of the hall, elevated on a platform of black granite, sat the throne itself, carved from a single piece of stone inlaid with silver. It had witnessed the rule of 23 Alpha Kings, Today it would witness something unprecedented. Willow stood with the other girls in an alcove off the main hall. Through a carved screen, she could see everything. The throne hall was packed. Nobles in silk and velvet filled the front rows. Servants in simple wool stood in the back. Guards lined the walls. Merchants and craftsmen crowded near the doors. Everyone wanted to see what the Alpha King would do. At the front of the crowd, separated by guards, stood 4 prisoners. Robert Gartside stood alone, unchained but surrounded. His head was held high. His expression was arrogant. He looked like a man who believed he would walk free. Beside him, chained together, stood 3 nobles. Matthew Rodney, round-faced and sweating despite the cool air. Reuben Barry, tall and thin with a permanent sneer. Patrick Hornsby, whose hands shook slightly as he stood. The doors at the back of the hall opened. Alpha King Stefan Lancaster entered. The crowd fell silent. Stefan walked the length of the throne hall with deliberate slowness. Every eye followed him. Every breath was held. He climbed the platform and turned to face his people. "We are gathered," Stefan said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall, to witness justice. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Stefan raised his hand. Silence fell again. 3 days ago, an Omega servant collapsed in my war chamber. She was injured, bleeding, in so much pain she could barely speak. Her name is Willow Swales, and what was done to her is the reason we are here today. More whispers. Louder now. Head Steward Robert Gartside, Stefan continued, his gaze settling on the prisoner. Step forward. Robert moved with confidence. He stopped at the base of the platform, looking up at Stefan with an expression of calculated humility. "You stand accused of systematic abuse of Omega servants under your supervision," Stefan said. "How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Your Majesty." Robert's voice was smooth. "I have served Castle Lancaster faithfully for 15 years. These accusations are nothing more than misunderstandings. Servant gossip given too much weight. Ledgers," Stefan gestured. Jordan stepped forward with a leather-bound book. Detailed ledgers showing payments received from nobles in exchange for access to servants. Your signature appears on every page. Robert's confidence flickered. Just slightly. "Those could be forgeries." "They could be," Stefan agreed. "Except we also have testimony from the servants themselves. 5 young women willing to stand before this court and tell everyone exactly what you did." "The word of servants against mine?" Robert actually laughed. "Your Majesty, with all respect, that is hardly—" "Bring them in," Stefan commanded. The side door opened. Willow stepped into the throne hall first. Megan, Lexi, Molly, and Maya followed. The crowd erupted. Nobles gasped. Servants cried out in recognition. Guards struggled to maintain order. But Willow barely heard it. She focused on putting one foot in front of the other, on walking across that endless marble floor without collapsing, on reaching the platform where Stefan stood. Stefan's eyes found hers. Hold them. In that moment, she felt his strength flowing into her. She could do this. They all could. The 5 young women stopped in front of the throne. Stefan descended from the platform. He did not return to his throne. He stood beside them, equal, united. The gesture sent another wave of shock through the crowd. An Alpha King did not stand with servants. An Alpha King stood above them, but Stefan was standing beside them. "Tell them," he said quietly, his voice for them alone. "Tell them everything." Maya went first. She spoke in a clear, steady voice about the first time Robert Gartside had noticed her, about being dragged to his quarters after her shift ended, about the pain and the fear and the years of silence that followed. She described being threatened, being told that if she spoke, she would disappear, that no one would care, that servants were replaceable. Lexi went next. Her voice was softer but no less powerful. She described the bruises, the threats, the way Robert had made sure they all knew that speaking out meant death. She talked about the other servants who had vanished, girls who had worked in the kitchens one day and were gone the next. No explanations, no questions asked. Molly's testimony was precise. She detailed dates and times with accuracy that made the abuse feel even more horrific in its regularity. Once a week, sometimes twice, always late at night when no one would see. She described Robert's quarters. The locked door, the way he would smile while he hurt them. Megan spoke about the other girls, the ones who had left or vanished, the ghosts of Castle Lancaster that no one talked about. She named them: Clara, Samantha, Rachel, Tegan. Each name landed like a stone. Finally, Willow stepped forward. She looked directly at Robert Gartside as she spoke, at the man who had dragged her through corridors, who had hurt her so badly she could not walk. "You told me I was nothing," she said. Her voice rang through the silent hall. "You said no one would believe me, no one would care, that I was just a servant, and servants do not matter." Robert's face had gone from confident to pale. "But you were wrong," Willow's voice strengthened. "Because I matter. We all matter. And today, everyone is going to know what you are." She turned to face the crowd. "This did not just happen to us. It happened to dozens of girls before us. And it would have kept happening if we had not spoken up, if Alpha King Stefan had not listened." She looked up at Stefan, found him watching her with an expression of pride and something deeper, something that made her breath catch. "I am not asking for Robert's death," Willow continued, turning back to the crowd. "I am asking for something better. I am asking for laws that protect servants, for oversight of those in power, for a system where abuse cannot hide in shadows anymore." Stefan's hand moved to rest on her shoulder. Warm, steady. "You will have it," he said quietly. Then louder, addressing the crowd. "Every word of their testimony will be recorded. Every request will be considered. And those who enabled this abuse will be held accountable." He gestured to the chained nobles. "Matthew Rodney, Reuben Barry, Patrick Hornsby. You paid Robert Gartside for access to servants. You funded his abuse. You are as guilty as he is." Matthew dropped to his knees. "Your Majesty, please. I did not know. I thought they were willing. The ledgers say otherwise." Stefan's voice was cold. "You knew exactly what you were paying for. You did it anyway." He turned to face the entire court. "I am enacting new laws, effective immediately. Any noble found abusing servants will be stripped of titles and lands. Any steward found enabling such abuse will be exiled. Any servant who comes forward with accusations will be given full protection and formal inquiry under Crown authority." The throne hall exploded into chaos. Nobles shouting protests. Servants weeping. Guards struggling to maintain order. Stefan raised his hand. Gradually, silence fell. "The sentence for Robert Gartside is exile. He will be stripped of all possessions, all status, and escorted beyond our borders within the day. He is never to return on pain of death." Robert's arrogance finally cracked. "You cannot do this. I have served. You have abused me," Stefan interrupted. "Now you will live with the consequences. Take him away." Guards seized Robert, dragging him from the hall as he screamed protests. "The sentence for Matthew Rodney, Reuben Barry, and Patrick Hornsby is the same. Exile. Effective immediately." More guards moved forward. The three nobles were hauled to their feet and escorted out. Their chains rattled. Stefan waited until the doors closed behind them. Then he addressed the court again. "To the victims of this abuse, I offer restitution, land grants, legal protection, status within this kingdom that recognizes your courage and your worth." He looked at each of the 5 young women in turn. Willow Swales, Megan Holton, Lexi Torp, Molly Browning, Maya Payton. "You are no longer servants. You are landowners, free women, and anyone who tries to hurt you will answer to me personally." The throne hall erupted again. But this time the sound was different. Not shock or outrage. Hope. Willow felt tears streaming down her face, felt Megan's hand slip into hers, felt the weight of years of fear finally lifting. Stefan leaned down to whisper in her ear. "You did it. You changed everything." She looked up at him. this powerful Alpha King who had knelt for her, who had listened to her, who had believed her when no one else would. "We did it," she whispered back. "Together." His smile was soft and private and full of promises. "Together," he agreed. Chapter 7. The celebration in the servants' quarters lasted until dawn. Willow had never seen anything like it. Servants who had spent their entire lives silent and afraid were laughing, crying, embracing each other, sharing stories they had kept buried for years. Samantha Smythe, the older kitchen worker, found Willow in the crowd. She pulled her into a tight embrace. "You have no idea what you have done," Samantha said, tears streaming down her weathered face. "My daughter works in the laundry. She is 16. Now she will never have to fear what I feared, what you endured. You gave her a future." Willow could not speak. She just held the older woman and cried. Around them, the celebration continued. Someone had brought out instruments. Music filled the air. Servants danced. For the first time in decades, joy echoed through the lower levels of Castle Lancaster. Stefan found Willow near midnight. He stood at the edge of the crowd, watching her with an expression of wonder. "Come with me," he said quietly. She followed him through corridors now dark and empty. They climbed to the observatory, their place. The glass walls reflected starlight. The kingdom spread out below them, peaceful under the moon. "How do you feel?" Stefan asked. "Exhausted," Willow admitted. "Relieved, terrified, happy, all at once." "That sounds about right." Stefan pulled her close, his arms wrapped around her from behind as they stood looking out over the kingdom. "What happened today was unprecedented. You know that?" "Yes, I know." 5 Omega servants stood in front of the most powerful nobles in the kingdom and demanded justice, and they got it. His voice was filled with pride. "You got it." Willow leaned back against him. "What happens now?" "Now we rebuild. We enforce the new laws. We make sure every servant knows they have protections." He paused. "And we deal with whatever fallout comes from exiling 4 powerful men. Do you think Matthew will try to retaliate? Probably. But he is outside our borders now. His power is gone. His allies have scattered." Stefan turned her to face him. "You are safe, Willow. For the first time since you entered Castle Lancaster, you are truly safe." She studied his face. The strong jaw, the scar through his eyebrow, the steel-gray eyes that looked at her like she was the most important thing in the world. "I love you," she said. The words came out before she could stop them. Simple, true, undeniable. Stefan went very still. "Say that again." "I love you, Stefan Lancaster. Not because you are the Alpha King, not because you saved me, not because of any mate bond." She touched his face gently. "I love you because you are kind and fierce and you listen. Because when I am with you, I feel seen and safe and wanted. Because you gave me choices when I had none. Because you are you." Stefan's control finally broke. He kissed her with weeks of restrained desire finally unleashed. His hands cupped her face, then slid into her hair. He kissed her like she was air, and he had been drowning. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Stefan rested his forehead against hers. "I love you too," he whispered. "More than I thought possible, more than is probably wise for an Alpha King. But I do not care. You are mine, Willow Swales, my mate, my partner, my equal." "Take me to bed," Willow said softly. "Not to possess me, not because you saved me, but because I choose you, because I want you." Stefan's eyes darkened with desire, but his voice remained controlled. "Are you sure? Your body is still healing. We do not have to." "I am sure." Willow rose on her toes and kissed him. "I want to feel something other than pain. I want to remember what it is like to be touched with love instead of violence. I want you, Stefan. All of you." Stefan lifted her in his arms. He carried her down the stairs to his chambers. Their chambers now, she realized. He set her down beside the bed with careful gentleness. "We go at your pace," he said, his voice rough with restrained need. You tell me what you want, what feels good, what hurts. If you say stop, we stop. Understand? I understand. Stefan began unlacing her dress with slow, deliberate movements. His eyes never left hers, asking permission with every touch. When the dress fell away, leaving her in just her shift, Stefan pulled back to look at her. Beautiful, he breathed. You are so beautiful. Willow's cheeks flushed. Your turn. Stefan smiled. He removed his shirt with efficient movements. Willow's breath caught at the sight of him. Lean muscle and old scars. Power and control. When he reached for the laces of his trousers, Willow stopped him. Let me. Her hands trembled slightly as she worked the laces. Stefan stood perfectly still, letting her set the pace. When he was finally bare before her, Willow took a moment just to look. He was beautiful. Hard edges and controlled strength. Everything she wanted. Stefan guided her to the bed. He lay down beside her, not above her. Equal. Partner. Tell me what you want, he murmured against her neck. Touch me, Willow whispered, gently, like I matter. You matter more than anything. Stefan's hands moved over her body with reverent care. He touched her like she was precious. Like every inch of her skin deserved attention. Like she was worth worshipping. He kissed her throat, her shoulders, the curve of her breast. Lower still. Willow gasped as pleasure built. Sharp and sweet and nothing like pain. This was different. This was chosen. This was love. More, she whispered. Stefan obliged. His hands and mouth explored her thoroughly, learning what made her sigh, what made her arch, what made her cry out his name. When they finally joined together, it was slow and careful and perfect. Stefan watched her face the entire time, checking for any sign of pain, any hint that she wanted to stop. But all Willow felt was pleasure, connection, love. Look at me, Stefan commanded softly as they moved together. Willow met his eyes. The intensity there stole her breath. This was not just physical. It was emotional, spiritual. The joining of two wolves who had found each other against all odds. When release finally crashed through her, Willow cried out Stefan's name. He followed moments later, his own control finally breaking as he buried his face in her neck. They stayed tangled together afterward, hearts racing, breathing hard, sweat cooling on skin. That was, Willow could not find words. Perfect, Stefan finished. He rolled to his side, pulling her with him so they faced each other on the narrow bed. You were perfect. Willow traced the scars on his chest. How did you get this one? Training accident when I was 16. Jordan hit me harder than he meant to. And this one? Battle on the western border 3 years ago. They lay there trading stories and soft touches until the sun began to climb. Finally, Stefan sighed. We should return to reality. There is much to do. Or we could stay here forever, Willow suggested, only half joking. Stefan kissed her forehead. Tempting. But you have land to inspect and I have a kingdom to run. Fine. Willow stretched, then winced slightly. Stefan was immediately alert. Did I hurt you? No. She smiled at his concern. Just pleasantly sore, in a good way. His answering smile was pleased and male, and just a touch smug. They dressed slowly, stealing kisses between layers of clothing. When they finally descended to the main hall, they found the castle already awake and buzzing with activity. News of the trial had spread beyond Castle Lancaster. Messengers arrived hourly with reports from other territories. Some nobles had fled. Others swore new oaths of loyalty. The power structure of the entire kingdom was shifting. But through it all, Stefan remained steady. He met with advisors, issued orders, enforced the new laws with iron determination, and every evening, he returned to Willow. Chapter 8. 6 weeks after the trial, Willow stood on the land Stefan had granted her. It was not large, nothing like the noble manors she had seen from a distance, but it was hers. A stone house with a thatched roof, an orchard heavy with late summer apples, fields prepared for planting, a small barn and garden plot. Everything a person would need to build a life. Cody Landon, the young guard Stefan trusted, had been assigned as her steward. He waited respectfully as Willow walked the property. "The orchard needs pruning," she said, studying the apple trees. "And the garden plot should be planted before winter." "I can arrange that, my lady," Cody replied. "Not my lady," Willow corrected gently. "Just Willow." Cody smiled. "As you wish." Stefan had ridden out with her. He stood near the house, watching as she explored. When Willow finally returned to him, his expression was soft. "What do you think?" he asked. "It is perfect. You can live here full-time if you wish, or visit when you want, or hire someone to manage it." He took her hands. "This is yours, Willow, to do with as you please. What would make you happy?" "You being happy makes me happy." His arm slid around her waist. "But personally, I like the idea of you keeping chambers at the castle, living with me, coming here when you need peace." Willow leaned back to look at him. "Living with you? As what? Your mistress?" "As my mate," Stefan said firmly. "As my equal. As the woman I intend to marry if she will have me." Willow's breath caught. "That is not a proper proposal." "I know," Stefan smiled. "The proper proposal comes later, with a ring and flowers and the entire kingdom watching. But I wanted you to know my intentions. I want to marry you, Willow Swales. I want to stand beside you for the rest of our lives." "Yes," Willow whispered. "Yes, yes, I will marry you. Whenever you ask properly, the answer is yes." Stefan kissed her, deep and thorough and full of joy. When they finally broke apart, Willow laughed. "We should return to the castle. You have a council meeting this afternoon." "Let them wait," Stefan murmured against her neck. "I am busy." But eventually they did return. The ride back took 2 hours through the countryside, now peaceful. Farmers waved as they passed. Children stopped their games to watch the Alpha King riding with a young woman who was no longer a servant. Back at Castle Lancaster, the changes were visible everywhere. Servants moved with new confidence. Omega smiled openly. The atmosphere had shifted from oppression to something that felt like hope. Megan, Lexi, Molly, and Maya had all claimed their lands. Megan had established a weaving operation that already showed profit. Lexi was training as a healer under Tegan. Molly had opened a school. Maya was running a sanctuary for abused Omegas. They met weekly in Willow's chambers to share progress and challenges. "The merchants are starting to recognize us," Megan reported at one gathering. "They negotiate with me directly now. No steward, no intermediary, just me. That is power," Maya said with satisfaction. "It is terrifying," Megan admitted, "but it is also powerful." "Have any of you faced retaliation?" Willow asked. The others shook their heads. "A few nobles refuse to acknowledge us," Molly said. "But most are too afraid of the Alpha King to try anything." "Good," Lexi added quietly. "Let them be afraid. Maybe they will think twice before hurting someone." 2 months after the trial, Stefan called Willow to his study late one evening. She found him standing at the window, staring out over the kingdom. His shoulders were tight with tension. "What is wrong?" she asked. Stefan turned. "Matthew Rodney is dead." Willow's heart skipped. "How?" "He attempted to gather swords beyond our borders. But men who fight only for coins do not honor loyalty. They took his gold, and when he could not offer more, they left his body on the Western Road as a warning to others who mistake pride for power." Stefan's expression was unreadable. "His body was found 3 days ago near the western border. Do you feel guilty?" "No." Stefan's answer was immediate. Matthew chose his path. He chose pride over justice. He chose violence over acceptance. His death is not on my conscience. He crossed the room and pulled Willow into his arms. "But it does mean something important." "What?" "The threat is over. Matthew was the only one with enough influence to organize real opposition. With him gone, the other exiled nobles are scattered, powerless." He pulled back to look at her. "You are safe, Willow. Truly safe. For the first time since this all began." Willow felt something loosen in her chest, a tension she had not realized she was still carrying. Take a breath with me. Look how far she has come. If you believe strength is not loud but unbreakable, drop a fire emoji in the comments right now. And if you want more Alpha King stories that hit like this, subscribe to Cold Blood Empire so you never miss the next one. Now watch what he does next. What happens now? She asked. Stefan smiled. Now I ask you properly. He knelt, right there in his study, with no flowers or witnesses or ceremony. Just the two of them and the truth between them. Willow Swales, he said, pulling a ring from his pocket. Simple silver set with a deep blue stone. Will you marry me? Will you stand beside me not as a subject but as an equal? Will you help me build a kingdom worth living in? Will you let me spend the rest of my life loving you? Tears streamed down Willow's face. Yes, she whispered, tears shining in her eyes. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Stefan slid the ring onto her finger with steady hands. He rose slowly, still holding her hand. The girl who had crawled into the war chamber broken now stood beside the Alpha King by choice. He had knelt when she was powerless. Now the pack would bow when she stood beside him, and this kingdom would never silence its servants again. Stefan slipped the ring onto her finger and stood. He kissed her while she laughed and cried at once. When? She asked. Whenever you want. Tomorrow. Next month. Next year. You decide. Willow thought about it. 3 months. I want time to prepare. And I want all the other girls there. Megan and Lexi and Molly and Maya. They are part of this story too. 3 months, Stefan agreed. And then you become my queen. Chapter 9. The wedding took place on the first day of winter in Castle Lancaster's Great Hall. Every noble in the kingdom attended. Every servant was given the day off to celebrate. The entire city turned out to witness an Alpha King, marry an Omega, who had once been invisible. Willow wore white silk stitched with silver thread. Her hair was woven with flowers from her own orchard. She carried a bouquet of herbs from Lexi's garden. Megan, Lexi, Molly, and Maya stood with her as witnesses. Stefan wore ceremonial armor, but his expression was soft as Willow walked toward him through the great hall. The ceremony blended tradition with revolution. Willow did not promise obedience, she promised partnership. Stefan did not claim dominion, he vowed equality. They wrote their own vows, spoken in front of the entire kingdom. I promise to see you, Willow said, her voice clear and strong. To listen to you, to stand with you in every storm, to choose you every single day. I promise to honor you, Stefan responded. To protect you without controlling you. To love you without limiting you. To be yours completely for as long as we both live. They exchanged rings, kissed. Turned to face their people as Alpha King and Queen. The hall erupted in cheers. The celebration lasted 3 days. There was food, music, and dancing. Nobles and servants mingled freely. The old boundaries were not gone entirely, but they were softening. On the 3rd night, Stefan and Willow finally retreated to their private chambers. Alone for the first time since the ceremony began. How do you feel? Stefan asked, pulling her close. Happy, Willow said simply. Truly, deeply happy. They made love slowly that night. No urgency, no rush. Just 2 wolves who had fought for each other learning how to be together in peace. Afterward, wrapped in blankets and each other, Willow traced patterns on Stefan's chest. Tell me something, she said quietly. Something you have never told anyone. Stefan was silent for a moment. Then he said, When you collapsed in the war chamber, I knew my life had changed forever. Not because of the mate bond, not because of duty, but because I saw someone brave enough to ask for help when the entire system was designed to keep her silent. And I knew I wanted to be worthy of that courage. Willow pressed closer. You are worthy. Because of you, Stefan corrected. You made me better. You challenged me. You showed me that leadership is not about standing above others. It is about standing beside them. We made each other better, Willow said. Together. Together. Stefan agreed. 5 years passed. The changes Stefan and Willow had started continued to spread. Omega rights expanded until the word servant became synonymous with employee. A job, not a sentence. Schools opened in every territory. Healthcare became accessible. Laws that had been unjust for centuries were rewritten, and through it all, Stefan and Willow ruled side by side. They had a daughter in the second year of their marriage. Born strong and healthy with Stefan's dark hair and Willow's blue eyes, they named her Hope. On a winter evening 5 years after the trial, Willow stood in the observatory, with Stefan's arms around her and their daughter sleeping against her chest. "Tell me something," Stefan murmured, echoing their first real conversation. Willow smiled. "I am happy, truly, deeply happy, and I never thought I would be able to say that. Tell me something else. I love you more every day, even when you are being stubborn about council meetings." Stefan laughed quietly. "I love you too, even when you reorganize my entire schedule without asking." They stood together watching the sun set over their kingdom. Their daughter is between them. And Willow thought about that terrified girl who had collapsed in the war chamber. She had been broken, hurt, barely surviving, but she survived. And in surviving, she had found something she never expected. Love. Real love. The kind that changed kingdoms and rewrote laws and proved that tradition was only as strong as the people willing to uphold it. She had found a partner who saw her, who listened to her, who knelt for her when he should have stood above her. She had found herself. "Thank you," she whispered against Stefan's chest. "For what?" "For kneeling, for listening, for loving me when I could not love myself." Stefan kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for crawling into that war chamber, for being brave enough to ask for help, for giving me the chance to be better than every Alpha King who came before me." Their daughter stirred. They both looked down at her. She had Willow's eyes and Stefan's determination, and she was perfect. "She is going to change the world," Willow said softly. "Just like her mother," Stefan agreed. And somewhere in the castle below, servants worked without fear. Omegas lived without chains. Children learned in schools that did not exist 5 years ago. The kingdom was not perfect. It never would be, but it was better, and it will keep getting better, because an Alpha King had learned to kneel, and a servant girl had learned to stand, and together they had built something worth fighting for, something worth living for, something worth loving forever. If this story moved you, if it made you angry, hopeful, or proud, let me know below. Which moment gave you chills? Was it when he knelt? Or when she chose him? Subscribe to Cold Blood Empire for more intense Alpha King romances. Smash the like to support this channel, and share this with someone who loves powerful werewolf stories. We are just getting started.